Hello, everyone. Today we have Penny Morton, who's a senior project engineer at Kulma Systems Limited and also the founder of DIY Women.
Hiya.
So we'll get started with the interview. The first question we have for you is, what steps did you take to pursue your passion?
So for me to become an engineer, I studied maths, physics at school, and then I went on to university and I did 5 years to get my master's in product design engineering. But in hindsight, I wish I'd actually looked into apprenticeships and college, which are other ways that you can get into engineering. And you can also work either part-time or full-time at an engineering company. I wish I'd maybe done that because I would have more hands-on experience actually building and fixing things rather than focusing more on passing exams. But yeah, for me, it was university.
Mm-hmm. Did you do any internships or during your college days?
Yeah, so I actually, for my first summer, I went away and did Camp America, which is something I would highly recommend in terms of getting different types of skills, working with children. And then the second summer, I went and lived and volunteered in India, which was through an organization called VSO, which was an amazing volunteer program. And then the third year, I went to work in Istanbul and built and made robotic beer taps. And that was through a program called IESTE that's international, and I would highly recommend people to look into it. You'll have local representatives in your area, and what's really good is you meet other people who are doing the same program as you in country from all around the world. So that's kind of placements or internships all year round. And then for my last summer, I went to China, also through IESTE, and I worked at a much larger company doing an engineering summer placement as well. So yeah, I like to travel.
That's great. And then you get when you travel, you get experience from different countries and then meet new people, try different projects.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason that I chose to work at Coolmill and, the skills that I've gained have not been from my university, it's actually been from, my hands-on internship experience from these different countries, because it's given me an ability to understand cultural differences and how to communicate internationally and all of these things which I've learned through, practical experiences over my kind of university exams.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Coolmill. Can you please share what a typical day looks like for you along with your responsibilities?
So at Coolmill, every day is totally different. We are a very small company, and I think one thing to bear in mind is if you do work for a smaller company, you get to do so many different things, and you can really test out, do I want to be in management more, or do I want to be on the kind of technical side of engineering, for example. So my job role is a project engineer. So essentially I manage projects. So for example, I managed a year-long project where we were trying to design something to process the rice better, let's put it simply. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed being able to get the best out of our team. And we also worked with universities and with other contractors as well, so kind of that whole communication and working together and presenting it is something that I really enjoy doing. And I think another things that I do in Coolmill are I do graphic design work as well. So for example, yesterday I was designing a big banner that we're going to be using at one of the conference events that we go to. So that's just kind of an example of when you're in a small company, you get to lots of different things. And sometimes I'll be down in Sheffield at the machine doing running trials. So, we put the rice in the machine, we process it, and we need to quality check it. So we sometimes have to count the rice to say, is this good, is it bad? So my job can vary, hugely between day to day and between week to week, but that's something that I really enjoy, and it's one of the aspects that I much preferred working at a smaller company versus a bigger company, which is what I learned during my summer internships.
Mm-hmm. So besides getting a variety of experience in a small company, is there any other reason why you prefer small companies?
I think you can do a lot of things quicker. So you'll sometimes find that in large companies that it's amazing, they'll have structures in place and maybe some graduate schemes, but you maybe tend to find that your progression might be a bit slower because you've almost got to follow through those, you know, those systems to get to the end, which works for a lot of people, like 100%. Like some people, like when I talk about my job, they get stressed because they're like, wait, you don't know where you're going to be next week? Like, so it totally depends on your personality. But for me, the approach of getting kind of, you know, chucked in the deep end and, you know, are you going to be able to, that works better for me, and I learn better in that environment. So I think that's definitely one aspect, is being able to learn a lot quicker in a smaller company, but also being able to, you know, if something comes in next week, a big project or something that we want to build or make, we can decide as a team, right, we're going to do that this week instead of something else. Whereas if you're in a bigger company, that's a lot harder to do because there's probably a lot more people involved and you've got to change a lot more schedules than maybe just 9 or 10 people, for example.
And so was there like, what did you, besides like doing internships, was there any way like doing projects on the side on your own time or anything like that you did before you entered the workforce?
Yeah, so one thing I would highly recommend for people to do is do a little bit of work experience. So when I was at school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My dad was a doctor, so he took me in for, you know, take your child to work day. I saw him do an operation and I was like, okay, no, I'm not doing this. Passed out at the sight of blood. So I left that day thinking, I'm not going to be a doctor. And then I thought, okay, I really enjoy my art and also my kind of math side of things. Maybe I'll do architecture. So I managed to find someone at my school, one of their parents was an architect. So I went along for half a day in the office, just got a feel for like, what do you do? They gave me a mini project to work on. And I left that day thinking, okay, I enjoyed parts of it, like using the software to design things, but I don't want to design buildings for the rest of my life. Like I don't have that same passion that he had when he was speaking to me about architecture. So then I was like, right, what am I going to do now? And then I kind of heard about engineering. I didn't really know much about it. And then I managed to secure a kind of week-long work experience that the school encouraged us to do. And through that engineering work experience, I learned that there were so many different types of engineering, and it really opened up my mind. And then kind of from there, I then went to university open days. So that's when you go around the university, have a look, like what courses do? They do a bit of talks. So it was really there that I stumbled upon product design engineering, and it was the only course that combined my like skills in maths and physics with my kind of love for art and design. It was the only one that really joined those together. So I knew after leaving that university open day, I was like, okay, mom, this is it. This is what I was meant to do. But yeah, it was a journey to get there. And I really don't envy the position of younger people trying to choose what they want to do when it feels like, oh, I don't even know like what I want to do tomorrow, let alone in 4 or 5 years time.
Yeah, for like high schoolers here at 17 or 18, for some people they have to decide their major before they submit their college applications. So I think it's like okay if they don't know exactly what they want to do.
Yeah, and even if you do a degree or you get a qualification, you know, you're not set to do that for the rest of your life. You can change, and even from that qualification, like it's more to maybe just get you into the job in the first place. And sometimes you'll find, like I am, so I mean, I'm a qualified engineer, but for the past year, I've actually been learning about the business side of things. So I mean, kind of on entrepreneur courses and doing all of this, which I've started to really enjoy. And it's almost like learning another language. And I'm thinking, you know, why did I go to uni for 5 years to engineering? I'm now doing business. But it's not about that. It's about you're adding more skills to, you know, to your understanding and everything. So yeah, I wouldn't stress too much about, you know, if you do something and then you end up doing something slightly differently, it's okay. The skills that you've learned from before, you're still going to be putting into practice.
So, do you have any advice for high schoolers that you wish you had known earlier?
Yeah, I think to not be scared to ask people for help. So for example, you know, if you've got a CV, or if you're looking to do a work experience, which I would highly recommend, or even if it's not a work experience, even if you could just get on a video call with someone who is an engineer, who is a doctor, who, you know, whatever profession they are, if you're able to speak to them, you will get a much better understanding on if that's the type of job that you want to go into. So I think, use the internet, like use LinkedIn, message people. Like I get messages from people on LinkedIn and I'm more than happy to reply to them and give them some advice. And that can go a long way. So I would just say, don't be scared to do that. And don't think, you're too young or people are going to ignore you. But someone once told me shy people get nothing. And it's sometimes true. So I think if you don't ask, you don't get. And what's the worst that could happen? Like a person who you don't know has not replied to you, like, oh, who cares? Like someone will reply to you and you'll be so surprised at how helpful people are, and they will be more than happy to give you some guidance and give you some feedback on that specific area. Even if you don't choose it, like it's fine, they won't be offended. So yeah, I would say really use the internet and use any network or connections you have, teachers, parents, friends, whoever, like ask them around and see what kind of jobs they do and see if you could maybe, if that's something you would like to do. Because I think you'll find it's sometimes the process of, the jobs or careers that you don't want to do, you actually end up finding the one that you do want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, definitely. Yes, ask as many people as you can, I would say.
All right. So do you have any last words you want to share before we conclude this interview?
I would say that try and get as much experience as possible when you are at college as well. So doing those internships was one of the best things I've ever done. Like, you don't need to go around the world to get that type of experience, even if it's not an experience necessarily in your field, it doesn't matter. Like having a part-time or a full-time job over summer, in something different, those are the skills that are really going to help you in your day-to-day job. So yeah, I would just say try and experience as many different things as possible, because it means that when you come to choosing, a company you want to work for or a career you want to go into, it's a lot easier because you know yourself what things that you like and you don't like to do. So if you want to, be on a computer all day and you're happy doing that, or if you prefer to be outside all the time, it's those things that feed a lot into choosing the type of career that you want to do at the end of the day. So yeah, definitely stay curious and try out lots of different things.
All right. So that concludes our interview, and thank you so much for your time. All right.
Thank you.